My name is David Orban, and I am very glad to have all of you following the show. Before we start, I want to remind you that even if we are live, you can always watch past episodes both on Facebook and on YouTube. And on YouTube, you can also subscribe to the channel. We also have a Discord community, and I invite you to join on davidorban.com/discord. And finally, if you find the show valuable, as well as the other content that I produce and the knowledge that I share, you're welcome to become a supporter on Patreon at patreon.com/davidorban. We deepen our knowledge of the world, and we use technology to go beyond what unassisted humans are able to do and to know. This is valid for what we know about our bodies as well. Implants with sensors are increasing in capacity and availability to be used with smart data collection to learn and improve our health. Today's guest is Hannes Sapiens, founder of Dsruptive. Hannes is a member of the digital biology faculty at Singularity University Nordics. He works as Chief Disruption Officer at Epicenter Stockholm, where he advises companies and organizations on how to navigate accelerating technological transformation. He is also a biohacker and a co-founder at the Swedish Association of Biohackers, where he works to democratize access to powerful biotechnologies and gained notoriety for hosting chip implant parties around the world. He has small children at home in lockdown with him, so we decided to record our conversation earlier to avoid disruption. The name of his startup, Dsrupt, notwithstanding. I will now start sharing the recording of our conversation, and you are welcome to ask questions and make comments as normally you would. I will stop the video to show your questions and answer them. And we may also have Hannes chime in from Facebook or YouTube, wherever he chooses to be, with or without his children, but just on the keyboard. So here is Hannes. Do the introduction on my own small window alone, and then I say, and welcome, Hannes. Brilliant. So let's talk about how you arrived to where you are. What brought you here? What experiences made you who you are?
Right, we're rolling. So I am an entrepreneur. I am also a biohacker and a transhumanist. I am driven and motivated with the idea that the human condition is needs improvement, and I want to help create that change with the application of novel technologies. And being of a business background, I worked for many years in finance and in high tech. I think entrepreneurship and business innovation are the best ways to bring these technologies to as many people as possible.
And contrary to other types of approaches where people work under self-imposed limits, biohackers and transhumanists are happy to go beyond those limits and keep experimenting. Of course, that doesn't mean with no rules and no regulations and in total anarchy, but it means to have a healthy disrespect for the wisdom of the past and to try to understand what we can aim to do today that couldn't be done yesterday, right?
100%. I mean, like the classic saying, if the kids of the cavemen had obeyed their parents, we'd still be living in caves. So every generation has to challenge the status quo, has to question the biases and say, why are we accepting this? And maybe there are ways in which we can challenge the status quo, remove suffering, and open up all these opportunities. And right now, I think we live in the most brilliant of times because we have marvelous opportunities. So within, in particular, the democratization of powerful biotechnologies such as genetic testing, wearable sensors and similar, where we can really augment, for example, the human body system and also our cognitive systems in ways which has the potential to transform the human experience.
In the Middle Ages, the human body was sacred, and violating the human body was a capital offense. Scientists, Renaissance polymaths like Leonardo, who were driven by the thirst of learning about the human body, had to actually steal cadavers in order to be able to dissect them in secret because it wasn't allowed. And fortunately, we moved beyond that. Otherwise, we still wouldn't understand how the body is made, what is the role of the organs, how the eye works. There are famous codices from Leonardo where he would show the inner working of a human eye, and a little macabre detail: he had to boil it so that he could cut it, because otherwise it is too liquid, right?
Exactly, it'll come apart. It's fascinating that you bring up the eye as an example, David, because in fact the human eye often used as an example of the marvel of evolution, right? This marvelous piece of flesh that actually allows you to see things that are millions of miles away and pick up the incredible range of nuances of light. It's in fact pretty shitty design. If you look at the eye in numerous animal contexts, the human eye is the back of the eye in the retina is actually flipped backwards. So all the nerve ends that pick up the signal were positioned on the wrong side, which means that we have to make a hole in the paneling to get the optical cable out, to bring the information out. It's like having the input cable for your TV in front of the screen. And
it is also the example I always bring up to show people, on one hand, that nature is lazy, extremely wasteful, will kill billions and tens of billions of individuals, will extinguish thousands and millions of species. But at the same time, as soon as it finds something that works, it stops trying. And it doesn't even look beyond the horizon, asking itself, is there something better? It reinvents the same thing over and over, and doesn't learn from its own mistakes if they are outside the bound of sexual reproduction.
Until the emergence of man, which gave life itself the opportunity to have this foresight, to have this design thinking, to actually begin to explore the opportunities of what if, and what if we would free ourselves from the paradigms of biological evolution.
Let me pause there for a moment, because I want to reshare the screen natively with its own audio, so that I can mute myself, which I was afraid to do before, because there are too many dogs barking around, even if they are not mine, and I will do better like this.
Only allow us to take very, very incremental steps. What if we can aim for different planets?
And this is the curiosity and passion that is driving transhumanists in general, and you specifically, in understanding how the human condition can be improved, not only and merely through the tools that we already have, through our body, through our cognition that we were born with, but through technology and our knowledge of how to apply technology and what we learn in science about our bodies and the universe, to radically improve the original design.
Exactly. Taking the tools that we get through technology and combining them with the unique ability of us humans to have to create visions of the future, far reaching, ambitious visions of what we could be. And I am
and have for a large part of my life been deeply fascinated with this. So for me, it has really not been an option to work with anything else rather than exploring these opportunities on how we can improve the human condition through technology. Now, among the different things I've done is to start a company called Dsruptive. And we call ourselves a human augmentation design agency because we design and offer these technologies to the mass market, which have the potential to transform and augment the human experience.
And Dsruptive itself has been born from your experience with sensors and implants. So if we talk about implants, probably we are not talking about these kinds of implants, breast implants, which were the first result that came up when I put the word implant in Google. But at the same time, when I mentioned it to you, you said, that's perfect. Why did you react so positively to that example? Not that there is anything wrong with breast implants, but I
obviously
didn't
not. They're brilliant.
It would be something you had comment on.
Maybe it has to do also with your browser history, David, that the Google decides to serve you. Maybe it's the city you're in that people have an interest. Who knows, right? That's for Google to answer. But no, I am equally interested in all technologies which are applied to modify the human body and to augment the functions and the aesthetics of the human body. And that obviously includes technologies that are already completely mainstream, such as breast implants or dental implants, for example. My challenge to those industries is that why in the world you have these world-class surgeons and you have great facilities and you are putting these artificial objects with great care into a large number of people, but you're putting stupid implants in. I mean, the functions that you could put in for example, implants in the breasts, including sensors for monitoring of disease, pattern, body temperature, you can make them orders of magnitude more valuable to the user than just the aesthetic dimension. You can also think of dental implants, for example. We have a huge industry, not just the cosmetic surgeons, but we have a huge industry, which is dentists that put artificial objects in people's mouths, which today also are stupid, right? We can only use them for chewing and for smiling. Imagine what you could do with smart sensors in your teeth. I like to consider the teeth like a server rack where you could put sensors that could log your food, log your snoring, log your speaking activities, and whatnot, right? And imagine the data insights we could get from having that mindset to dental implants.
And there is a science fiction book series, a trilogy by William Gibson Agency, and I don't know if it is the title of the trilogy. It is the last one, actually, so probably it isn't, where people in the future are in extremely rich artificial reality environments, and the way they interact with that environment is actually touching with their tongue various parts of their dental arch, which probably means that they have the kind of implants that you just mentioned. Also, the implants that you have had most experience with already for the past several years are the chips that are implanted in people's hands. I also have one of those, and when I talk about it at conferences, I actually tell the attendees that they can come and touch my hand and they can feel the chip beneath my skin. And I tell them that when I tell at other conferences this opportunity at the break, a lot of people would come to say that they absolutely do not want to touch the chip under my skin, that they are repulsed even by the idea. And my remark about that is that it is a very important observation, because they are actually touching not the chip, but the limits of their adaptability. of their ability to be in a world where there will be an increasing number of people who say, why, that's normal, I have a mobile phone, I have a chip.
David, I think I'm grateful for your work in terms of helping people understand that this technology is easy and safe and becoming mainstream. I just like to toy with the idea that if it was breast implants that you'd be willing to demonstrate to people, I'm sure you would have a different take-up. There are many cultural dimensions to this.
I should tell them next conference, if we ever gonna have physical conferences, I will tell them, I have 2 implants, one in my hand and one in my breast. You can pick which one you want to touch.
But ultimately, I honestly don't care where in the body these technologies are applied. And if we can use existing vectors of aesthetic implants or dental implants to get those sensors in the body, that's ultimately what I'm looking for. Because what I want to do is that I want to improve how we understand our own bodies. And this is our core mission at Dsruptive, because what we see is that today we can create great companies that can have a real-time dashboard of everything that is happening in the company, of cash flow, of web traffic, of inventory and whatnot. So we have those tools. But for the most important system in our lives, which is the system that keeps us alive, our own bodies, we don't have that kind of insight. We eat something, we take a medication, we can't really tell the effects. And if we try to do so, we need to have all these devices. We may need to have a lab, or we need to have thermometers in different parts of our body. So what I want to do is, with this technology, well-known, well-established, well-worked through, safe, I want to place tiny devices with sensors that give you give like an internal eye into the body, that gives you a data feed of what is going on in the body in real time. So you can swipe yourself.
Tell us specifically how this implant is and how it gets implanted, and then how does it communicate with you or whoever wants the data.
Absolutely. So in essence, this technology is based on the injectable chip implants for several reasons. First of all, this is an established technology. We've been applying this in animals at industrial scales, with billions and billions of animals being implanted, and also tens of thousands of people. The benefit with this technology is that these implants are very tiny, about the size of a large grain of rice. You can inject them under the skin. It takes just a second. It's not a surgical procedure that require any kind of anesthetic or any particular stitches or anything. You just put the Band-Aid on and then you continue with your day. Secondly, this technology, these implants, they are coated 100% in a biocompatible glass casing, which means the body just ignores them. The body doesn't attack them. Otherwise, typically the body is a very hostile system to foreign objects. It will attack anything that it doesn't recognize as friendly. But these implants are also safe in that regard. And thirdly, the implants do not have a battery, which means that they don't put out any radiation. They cannot transmit any signal independently, which means they cannot be used for surveillance. And then they are powered simply by swiping the smartphone on top of the implants. So it's powered by the magnetic field of a phone. And at the same time, you swipe your hand or your arm with the phone. The phone alerts the implant, wakes it up, and then it captures the data, let it be temperature, blood sugar, pulse, or other important vital parameters. And this will allow us to monitor and have these data not just collected and logged in a nice way, but also with the potential to share them remotely for remote diagnostics.
And you already have a certain generation of this in your hand, just like I do. And so Dsruptive is now designing or has already designed the next generation. One of the most beautiful components that adds aesthetic value, but not, at least as I know, value in terms of what you can learn about a human body is that you added an LED to the chip itself. Is that correct?
Right, exactly. So we don't underestimate both the aesthetic and the pop cultural value of these implants. In many of us, the latest generation of implants, we have LED lights. So when you swipe them, they light up. It's both practical and it's entertaining and aesthetically pleasing. And you can choose between a range of different colors. What color are you? Are you green, blue, red? Take your pick and express yourself. And I mean, back in the old days, people did tattoos. Now we can do a lot smarter things. But for us as a business and looking at the tech roadmap that we have, we see these LED light implants mostly as an illustration of, okay, we can power externally and demonstrate how this technology works in a very, very easy, understandable way. And then we replace the LED light or add on top of it a range of different sensors, optical sensors, accelerometers, and whatnot, in order to also capture biometric data.
And tell a bit about possible applications that you envision once these chips of a given generation, which contain certain sensors that you believe can be usefully put inside the glass vial are implanted. And do you think these applications will appear once we have 1 billion people with the chips, or already 1,000 can be useful?
No, in fact, the rapid developments in microelectronics and tiny sensors and IoT applications of said sensors are making these things available already today. So it's more a question of cost, actually, and also of technical rollout of these technologies. So today we can design implants that has some sensors. We are limited technically by our decision to stay within a complete glass casing. This allows us to measure certain things, such as temperature, vibration, movement, or various optical things that can be measured through the glass. But we cannot measure, for example, things that require chemical sensors, such as blood sugar or cholesterol, simply because that type of sensors have a very limited lifetime in the human body. And we want to create implants that people can have for many years. Speaking of user cases, as you asked for, we can take, for example, the ability to monitoring pulse and heart rate for a patient. Instead of having external devices put on top of you, you simply have a little implant and you swipe them with your personal smartphone. And by way of an app, this is uploaded to your doctor's system. And the doctor can call you over the phone and say, hey, I'd like to listen to your heart. And then you just simply hold your smartphone to your heart instead of having a stethoscope or some other more complicated piece of equipment. And you can not just listen to, for example, just a heartbeat, but also to the sound of operated heart valves or other dimensions of how the heart works, such as the electrical patterns of the heart. So that is one user case we're currently actively exploring. But my vision for this technology is not that necessarily that we focus on wealthy people living in developed countries that already have a great access to healthcare. I think the greatest contribution that this cheap and very robust technology can have is also in developing countries that may not have the same access to quality healthcare. Imagine if you live maybe a whole day's travel from the nearest health facility. Now, the only thing you require is that if one person in the village has a smartphone, you can do remote diagnostics. So you can, a child is falling ill or a person is not doing well, you can swipe that person, answer a few questions, and then you can get a much, much better understanding of their health state based on these sensors. So that is where I see the real impact of this technology.
So people going to Dsruptive.com can sign up for your newsletter, but they cannot buy an implant from you today. are you planning to offer these implants to the consumers directly so that they can inject themselves? How do you plan to provide your solutions on the market?
Right. Well, Dsruptive, we are a very focused technology company. So we design the hardware and software to support these devices, but we think that since the user cases for this technology are very diverse and can be applied to many different conditions, we don't sell our solutions to consumers. We are a business-to-business solutions provider, and we are happy to sell our systems to companies who can then apply them to their particular user bases, their particular group of patients. And we think this is the best way to scale the impact that we want to do.
I finally found a photo on your Facebook page of the LED light in the chip. Now, one thing you mentioned is obviously the natural limits of what sensors you can put in the vial. Nothing that has to directly and chemically examine the body can be used because, well, by definition, the glass enclosure isolates the electronics and the sensors. So in that way, the light that goes out and then gets reflected could be also an important source of understanding certain mechanisms and something more than just aesthetic reasons.
Yes, for spectrometry, for example, this can be applied for measuring blood oxidation, which impacts the color of the blood. And by way of both having a light and a light sensor, we can actually measure this.
One of the things that I say when I talk about my chip is that it is a bit silly, but today unavoidable, that even though the chip is in my body, I have to use the phone to read the data on the chip so that it can go through my eyes back into my brain. And that I am looking forward to when the implant is going to be able to communicate with my nervous system directly. And we will have Elon Musk as a guest shortly, maybe, or not, we'll see. I'm certainly going to invite him. But I don't know if we will be able to get to Neuralink because there's a lot of things to talk about with Musk. Because Neuralink, of course, is the company that is just like you are working with glass enclosed NFC chips to be implanted in the hand. They are working on another kind of implant that is implanted in the brain in order to capture data that is of a different kind. What we are what our brains are saying to, for example, our limbs, and those commands are not getting there because, for example, we have our spinal cord severed. And many of us are rooting for Neuralink to succeed because we agree with one of the original starting points that Elon Musk highlighted, that the bandwidth of input and output between the world of data, either inside our own bodies or outside, and our brain is unbalanced. And we need to rebalance this bandwidth and the ability to both share and absorb knowledge. So what beyond what Dsruptive is doing, which of course is very concrete and rather immediate, because you already have prototypes of these chips, and if I am not mistaken, you're also raising funds in order to go to the next stage. And
feel free to get in touch, potential investors, absolutely. But if I may, I'm happy to comment on the Neuralink
Yes, go ahead.
project. So, of course, on a principle level, I love the idea, and I would love for it to happen and be successful. But in comparison, what we are doing, our product can be used by people today and create value for people already today. Unfortunately, I think Neuralink is still a few tech cycles away from being even feasible. So as much as I would love for it to exist, we simply we don't have the granularity of mapping activities in neurons yet. We just don't have that technology. And the best metaphor I have to describe the complexity of the brain and our futile attempts to understand it is that in Sweden we have a lot of trees. Sweden is a large country with a lot of trees, billions and billions of trees, and by orders of magnitude, roughly as many trees as there are neurons in the brain. And now each of these trees has leaves equal roughly to the amount of synapses between those nerve cells in the brain. Now, the best technology we have to measure the brain activity is equivalent to a toothbrush. So it has a bunch of hairs and bristles, and good luck. You have a toothbrush. Now, can you please communicate with the forests of Sweden? And the complexity is not there yet, right? Our tools are way too crude. We need them to get into the nanoscale before we can honestly consider this as a value-creating solution. Let's make it happen by all means, but it's a few years down the road.
And of course, the difference is between people who, just because we don't have those capabilities today, immediately jump to the conclusion that we are never going to have it. And the people who say, well, we will improve our capabilities. Actually, we are improving our capabilities exponentially. And then there are those peoples like me who are saying we are joltingly improving our capabilities. The rate of acceleration with which we are improving our capabilities is itself increasing. Ray Kurzweil predicted many years ago that the first human-level AI would have been available for whatever amount of money was necessary in 2035. And then at 2045, 10 years later, the cost for that amount of intelligence would be reduced to about $1,000. And he himself, observing recent advances in artificial intelligence, revised his projection for the first to come closer to 2028. So this is an illustration of the concept of jolting, the increasing rate of acceleration of technology-based change. What about swallowables?
Ingestibles, we call them.
Ingestibles.
Right.
Do you believe they would be interesting as well, or
they
too
serve a
fast
great
and
function?
too little data?
So coming from the technology side, we think in terms of how the user experience and how do we make these technologies as simple as possible for users? How do we make them non-invasive? Which is why we want a device that you can inject and then you can use it for 10 years. It's not worthwhile for people to get an implant and then have it replaced every 3 months. That's too much of a pain. I think a somewhat similar dimension applies to ingestibles. So should I swallow a device every day to have it log my microbiome and any ulcers I may have in my stomach or other activities in there? Or is there quicker non-invasive ways? Now, I am a big believer in smart toilets. I think that is also a paradigm that will come into our homes, and I'm following a couple of very interesting startups working with similar technologies. Because you know what, David? Every day, every one of us are leaving a fantastic amount of smart health data, and we just flush it down the drain. So a smart toilet that would pick up, if you lack any nutrients, if there are any, shifts in your gut biome, if you may even have a certain virus or not, that can all be logged in what we leave in the bathroom every day. And the cool thing with this technology is that the smart toilet is 100% non-invasive. People don't need to change a single habit, because that's actually the hard part often. To innovate the technology is only one part. To make people use it and change their behavior is harder. And whatever innovation we can do that doesn't require people to change any of their habits are going to be so much more successful. So ingestibles are cool for certain applications, but I think for most of those applications, smart bathrooms are simply going to win because of the user convenience.
And certainly adoption of technologies also is brought on by convenience. We are lazy mammals set in our ways. Even those of us curious and adventurous can only represent a tiny minority of the whole population. Otherwise, all our adventures would kill too many. So natural selection makes it sure that the majority of people are skeptical when crazies like you and me come and say, yeah, do this, do that, it's fun,
let's build the future,
let's do it. It is very natural for the majority of people to say, well, why don't you do it, and then I will see. If you don't die, I may do it too. And so this has been a wonderful conversation, and I am sure that when I am showing it live in a few hours, our viewers will have had questions that at that time I will have answered. But when later on you watch the recording of that future live stream, you can see the questions in the comments, and you can endeavor answer them too. So I don't know if you can interpret the intricate time braids of this paradoxical description and explanation, but whichever time slice your self-awareness is now inhabiting, what matters is that what you are doing with passion and creativity for the benefit of humanity flourishes, and that is what I wish for you, and great success.
Thank you very much, David. It's been, as usual, fantastic to talk with you.
So this was the recording of my conversation with Hannes a few hours ago, and it also gave me the opportunity of experimenting, right, with something different, sharing the conversation that is near real time, and provides me with a bit of flexibility with respect of the needs of the guest, so that I can share exciting things and thoughts and products and services, and interact with our guests as well as you. Tomorrow, we are going to have 2 live streams. Those of you who speak Italian are welcome to join at 4 p.m. Italian time to speak about the future of design with my friend Lee, who will be actually waking up very early because he's connecting from Palo Alto. So I expect he will wake up at 6 a.m., fire up his brain, whatever he needs to do in the morning in order for his brain to start working. And then he will join us at 7 a.m. To be live and talk about the future of design. And searching for the question live 34 is going to be with Stephen Wolfram. And Stephen and I have known each other for a long time. And he last week launched his latest project, the physics project. And I will be very, very excited to talk about this with him, because it is something that he has been planning for a long time. He is one of those people who are able to really very smartly mix what he does and what he does it with, so that the tools become the ladder to build better tools. It is similar, and I may ask him tomorrow if he believes that the comparison is applicable. It is a bit similar to when Elon Musk says that the gigafactory is the machine that builds the machine. And I go a step further, because I believe, and we will see if it is true, that actually the machine that builds the machine that builds the machine matters as well. So how do you improve the efficiency with which you build more gigafactories? And the same abstraction layers can also be seen in artificial intelligence, where rather than programming what machines must do, we are now at the point where the machines learn how to learn how to learn. And we need to bring them to the fourth layer to learn how to learn how to learn how to learn. And you can go back to a previous episode of Searching for the Question Live with Roman Yampolsky, where we define exactly what these four layers actually mean and why they all matter. So what did Stephen Wolfram do? He created more than 30 years ago Mathematica, like mathematics with an A to make it sound Latin, which is a symbolic computation engine and platform and programming language now, the Wolfram language and so many other things. Wolfram Alpha, for example, which is the symbolic search engine. And he used those tools to build better tools, to keep searching for what he's curious about. In particular, the computational foundations of science, and in the physics project, the computational foundations of physics. We will have whatever amount of time. I mean, the episode, each episode of Searching for the Question Live is about an hour. And I always tell the guests that if they get bored, the secret sign to end it faster is this, right? I also tell them the opposite, that if they have fun and they have time, we can keep going. Now, Stephen is known for 3-hour-long live streams, Fidel Castro style almost. I think he would go for 5 or 6, but there was no internet, so nobody knows. But Stephen lives on the internet. He's a remote CEO and has been forever. And I am sure we will not be able to exhaust the depth and the breadth of the topics in one conversation. So I will have a hard time having him back, that's for sure. But I may take clips and then comment myself what I believe the implications of the things that we are saying are based on those various clips. So just to give you an advanced flavor of what this physics project is, he believes that at 10 to the minus 100, maybe, or 10 to the minus 200 orders of magnitude, so not meters, not centimeters, not millimeters, not micrometers, not nanometers, not picometers, not femtometers, but way, way, way below, way, way, way smaller than anybody dared to think. There is no space, no time, but relationships between nodes in a network where a certain rule spontaneously generates complexity that gives rise to the phenomena that we call space and time, but also to the theoretical structures that we call general relativity or quantum mechanics, or the physical objects that we call electron or proton or neutrino, and so on. It is an absolutely fascinating and a mind-bogglingly ambitious project, and there are really just an unending number of implications around it. So yes, I am very excited about tomorrow's conversation, and I am going to have fun in talking with Stephen about it. Also, it is the 10th anniversary of the conference that I organized at Harvard University together with Alex Lightman, where together with Ray Kurzweil and many other friends, Stephen was one of our speakers. And where are the speakers? Schedule speakers. There you go. And there was Stephen, and the talk he gave was very, very cool. He spoke about computation and the future of human condition, of why what we do matters and how fundamentally it may matter. And you can read it here as well in advance of tomorrow's meeting. Maurizio is commenting, could be refined string theory too. Yes, obviously he is not against the terminology and the establishment of academia and academic researchers, because definitely, as all of us, he is also building on things that existed before. We will have the chance of hopefully asking those questions as well, even though I am interested not only and not as much in specifically what the physics projects means, but the questions on the meta layer. Was it an accident that he was able to create the tool that creates the tool, or even if he were to choose music as his profession rather than physics and computer science and software engineering, would he be a creator of musical instruments that were, I don't know if the analogy holds. I am still working on the questions to send or to ask. Talking about sending, if you have questions, since it not often happens, but I am publishing and starting to publish guests that are coming in the next few days, absolutely feel free to list questions that I should be asking. One of the variants of my slogan, maybe the original variant, is, what is the question that I should be asking, right? It is a bit clunkier than searching for the question. So what is the question that I should be asking, Stephen Wolfram? Let me know. Put it in the comments on any of the platforms, and I will ask him those questions. All right. And tune in tomorrow for learning about the guest for the next day as well, because we already have a very exciting guest for Friday too. But I will announce it tomorrow, and I hope you will like it and you will appreciate it. So that's it for today. Thank you very much, and see you tomorrow with Stephen Wolfram.